we should do is definitely spend some quality time on the last chapter on the right to revolution, because this one will be of special significance, not only from a general historical standpoint, because that chapter really opens the door to future revolutions in the realm of philosophy, the American one, certainly. And again, not as some sort of exceptional moment which shall never happen again and we'll forget about it. Ever happened, more it was very sad. But as a permanent right on part of it. But also, not only important for that reason, long historical reasons, but also because when you're going to have to write the final, the rebels are fighting and writing and arguing in the thick of the revolution. So if you bring Locke there, this is one of the very obvious things that he might respond to. So yeah, those are the two reasons. We start with just the when we were with the chapter 7, the first one we read. This one definitely includes some important components of this general philosophy. One of the passages from this chapter that's important for us was important before was page 45, the thing about master and servant. We have to look ahead to this one because of the question of who the servant in chapter 5 to make sure that to clarify really that by servant you mean the wage worker, like that. But there's more in this chapter that I think pertains to his politics. Specifically to the very purpose of the government. The purpose of having a political system in the first place. What is the purpose of government for what?
Protection of property.
What do you make of that?
I find it so, I don't know if it's confusing, but like, he says, whereas government has no other end but the preservation of property, but on the page right after that, he says, basically majority rule, which I can't reconcile, because like, the majority of people don't have property, so who's the majority talking about?
Right, so you got to put your finger right in on the next one, the one that's going to be most important time. The majority. Consent to the majority. The legislative expressing the will of the majority. Yeah, the majority. That's the issue. Because I think it'd be easy for us to telescope into that formulation. The content, the man. Remember with Machiavelli, forget Machiavelli. One can use this term for people, and that's a nice universal term, which seems very inclusive and very wonderful. And that can serve as certain, if you like, ideological purpose. But when it's time to decide who really counts in politics, that's when there's people in it. And so it wouldn't be the first time if in a text of political theory, an author invokes a universal subject, but there's a catch. It wouldn't be. We know in the bank, so to speak, there's already Locke's enormous preoccupation with money. From chapter 5, but not only chapter 5. There's some stuff I want to show you from these chapters. He's always thinking on a lot of things. He's in these weird scenarios. Hey, what if the thief shows up? and then he pulls me up. He kind of robs me in the street. How many times does he do that? Remember how many times Mike Lee did that? Zero. How many times Aristotle did that? Zero. How many times Plato did that? Zero. This is someone whose mentality is really shaped by, you might say, obsessive concern with money and property and the defense thereof. So this is the main issue. The main issue is who's going to be when he's talking about the people who are then in his defense, this is something when he says that. Remember the business of consent. For Hobbes, it was so common. The notion that there's this actual social contract that people voluntarily enter into. In the most formal sense, it exists in Hobbes, but in reality, he has so many ways to get around that. He doesn't need it, he doesn't want it. You're in a social contract because. And Locke certainly seems more of a stickler when it comes to, okay, but no. The people need to know that this contract has to be binding, not only for the people, but also for the people. So there's an element of historical progress from Hobbes to Locke, without question. But what else? What do you think about the business of property here? Because there's also a couple of computations. For example, what does it mean by property? That may not be super obvious.
So by property, I remember it's life, liberty, and state. But you also have property if you're a labor because you own your ability.
That's another very, very
So
that's good. That's kind of
I'm just like confused as to where those tie in because the government is of the people and the people are people of property.
right. In a certain right. To defend law, one could say, well, look, remember chapter 5. Everyone owns themselves. Therefore, when he's saying that the business of government is to protect property, if you're broke, don't fret because the government still protects you because you're a property owner insofar as you own yourself and your ability to live. That's a very nice way to kind of bring the universal back. You know? So this is all valid and as you guys said. And you mentioned also that property at one point he says it's a kind of concept that includes three things, right? Reminds me?
Life, liberty, estate.
And where is that?
Life is
No, I'm sorry, where is it in? It's in this chapter. 36.
Paragraph 87 on 46.
That is the site. Liberty and state. So, okay, life, liberty, and state, I feel like we understand what this is. Doesn't require much more. So what do we make of this? Property sounds to our ear, and then this is, I want to say it's the only time that he says, like, okay, this thing includes these three things. But every other time, property stands alone. When we hear property, we think, it takes some acrobatics to get to life and liberty. You manage, but it's a little bit of a leap. Right? But we usually think about, let's say, estate stuff, possessions. So there's a certain tension.
So I believe he says earlier that you don't actually own your life, that God owns your life because you can't give away your life to somebody else, right?
There's that too. In chapter 5, there's that too.
So why does he call your property here owning your life?
Right, so we have some complicated. Let's just, because it would mean something very, if he really means, and every time he talks about property, he really specifically and strictly means, life, liberty, and property. it would be one.
If he mentions life, liberty, and property in 46, and for the most part, when you read the stuff about the political significance of property,
It sounds like he means a state. It would be a different.
so which one is it? Let me put it as bluntly as I can, and this might sound like a weird question. Does Locke care more about the right to life or the right to stuff?
I don't know.
This justification of slavery.
And tell us more.
So like, in the book, he's talking about that's not justifiable, but the thing you showed us about, let's say, yeah, you like you said, he opened the door, like, it could be justifiable. So if we can have slaves, then he cares more about the property than the rights of people, because they're being.
Okay, the life as in you have the right not to be killed. Kind of let's say Hobbes style. That someone can just kill you, or the state can just kill you.
But also you have the right to be free and not.
Okay, well, yeah, that one definitely there's a major tension between liberty and property if you happen to be a slave. But not just if you happen to be a slave. But I'm talking about life specifically, the right to be alive and the right to keep yourself. Which one is more important? Now, anyone would have to learn, would have to probably guess that life is dictated. What good is the right to property? But twice at least, law very specifically says that the right to your money.
It's kind of along what she was saying. There is a part where he does say, like, when he talks about the state of slavery for a slave, his first consideration is not like the life of the person enslaved. His first consideration is, and being in the state of slavery